Good evening, everyone. We're going to get the meeting started in a minute here. Before we do get started, I just want to discuss expectations for audience members, for attendees tonight. We do welcome your attendance and your interest in the business of the City of Port Washington Plan Commission tonight. There is a public comment portion on the agenda this evening. There's also a public hearing on TID number 5. If you do wish to speak during the meeting, you'll have the opportunity to do so at the appropriate sections of the meeting. We expect everyone to be civil and respectful of others sharing their viewpoints. Please allow speakers to provide their viewpoints without shouting over them, yelling, chanting, or other similar behavior. When members of the Plan Commission are speaking, please allow them that same courtesy. If you are unable to treat others in a respectful manner, you will be asked to leave. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for October 16th, 2025 for the City of Port Washington. Roll call. We are one commissioner is absent and excused, Mr. Ryer. Otherwise, all members are here. The next agenda item is the approval of the previous meeting minutes. Is there anyone willing to make that motion?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions or concerns on the motion? All right, seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That moves us into public comments and appearances. Before we begin the public comments and appearances, just a reminder to our guests tonight that the Planning Commission has 3 agenda items past the public comments. First is the public hearing. So we will have up to 30 minutes of comments with up to 3 minutes per person to speak. During that time, again, the request is that we are respectful to each other, regardless of your point of view, that we don't interrupt each other and allow people to continue their statements with a civil and respectful dialogue, which would be greatly appreciated. Second is the cadence of the meeting tonight is first, we will have the public comments and appearances. Your comments must be relevant to what's on the Planning Commission agenda. And the Planning Commission agenda is a discussion on the creation of a tax incremental district, district number 5, and the zoning code rewrite. Those are our 2 agenda items. Please make sure that they are relevant directly to your concerns on the TID and keep it within that purview, please. So during public comments and appearances, again, I'll set a timer here for 3 minutes. And then once that bell goes off, please make sure to stop your comments because the 30-minute clock runs if you run over for other people. At this time, if you would like to make a public comment or appearance, please line up at the podium. There's a sign-in sheet there, and our officer and clerk will help you through that. So I'll give you a second to do that.
You want to line up right here, please, so you want to public comment, and Emily will help you sign in. Thank you.
Second most important thing taking place in Port Washington tonight is the Milwaukee Brewers. If anyone wants to flash their scores, that would be kind of nice to know. We're anxious about a bunch of stuff, so that would be good to know.
Is it possible to turn the volume up?
This is as loud as it goes. I can get closer to the microphone. You're welcome. Thank you. All right, so again, as you do public comments, please make sure to state your name and address. And then we can get started.
Do I have to? Oh, it's on. My name's Trish Binkowski, W3446 Meadowlark Road, Fredonia, Wisconsin. Good evening, Mayor Nitsky, members of the Common Council, and fellow residents of Port Washington. I'm a concerned citizen who learned about the Vantage Data Center project in late August, leaving little time for meaningful community input. Tonight, as you advance the TIF, I urge you to halt and require a robust, clean energy and air quality plan. Without it, this campus threatens to devastate neighboring communities like Fredonia with intrusive power lines, noise, and pollution, while other recent approvals suggest our voices are being sidelined amid growing pushback. The facts are alarming. The 672-acre site with 4 initial buildings spanning 2.5 million square feet starts with 1.3 gigawatts in power demand, equivalent to powering every Wisconsin household. But Vantage's long-range plans could escalate to 3.5 gigawatts. This right now would be consuming 43% of We Energy's current capacity. Where would this energy come from? I'm just trying to get through this. Environmental groups like Clean Wisconsin warn climate impacts, yet there are no mandated plan for solar, wind, or monitoring to protect our health. Water usage is another red flag. Vantage claims minimal needs. I hope so, 65 households, as was stated. But other data centers, I'm just concerned that they may not continue with the 22,000 gallons. Transparency, I feel, has been sorely lacking. Vantage officials haven't disclosed phased power details or impacts despite Wisconsin's public record laws, requiring prompt access to documents. No referendum was held through state law, which allows for public votes on major issues, so why not here? Council, would you please show your care? Consider condition TIF on a binding clean energy plan with renewable prioritize air quality, safeguards, and ongoing monitoring to a true community oversight. We deserve transparency and protection. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, and I appreciate you coming this evening, that on our city's website is an FAQ, and many of the questions or concerns that were just raised have been answered on there. And again, this is about the TIF tonight, so make sure that the comments are relevant to the TIF, because that's our agenda. Okay,
Tracy
thank you.
Finch.
Welcome.
Tracy Finch, 1142 West Portview Drive of Port Washington. Port Washington is at a crossroads, and our elected leaders are gambling with our future on the promise of an AI data center. A TID for Advantage is a bad bet for our community and the people of Port Washington and surrounding areas, and are not the ones who stand to win. Our citizens are not fooled by the promises of thousands of temporary construction jobs. Once the job is complete, the number of permanent jobs shrinks to a few hundred at best. We are being asked to absorb all the risk of a project that will primarily benefit a corporation and its shareholders, not our neighbors. This is not a sustainable economic development strategy for a thriving local community. Where are schools going to get their fundings? Where will the fire and police go for funds if they need us safe? It's not fiscally responsible when we're already tight and you're wasting our money. You need to consider the real concerns of the people you serve. We are worried about the massive demand on our shared electric grid and the potential impact on our utility bills. We are concerned about the environmental consequences, including intensive water usage and destruction on local wetlands and farmlands that are part of our heritage. This project is not a benefit, it's a burden on the very resources that make our region special. Just like the Vantage data centers in Arizona, Texas, and Virginia. The deal will not generate business opportunities for local entrepreneurs or help existing small businesses thrive. A data center operates as a closed system, providing little to no spin-off revenue for local restaurants, retailers, or service providers. This is a one-sided gamble where our community takes all costs and risks, where profits are shipped off to an out-of-state corporation. Your duty is to protect and serve the people who elected you. A TID for Vantage is a step in the wrong direction. I urge you to reconsider this bad gamble and put the needs of Port Washington residents first and not yours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the chance to speak tonight. My name is Jamie Haraver. My address is 207 East Douglas Street, Port Washington. After surfing, skiing, traveling, and living in various beautiful destinations across the country and abroad, I can confidently say that Port is truly a gem and has the potential to be one of the most thoughtfully and consciously developed cities in our state. I am for responsible development and am aware of the value it brings to our city. However, I have concerns regarding the passing of the TID number 5. Number 1, the fact that there is no immediate tax revenue for the first 18 years of the project lends this question. Isn't there more responsible development that would generate immediate tax revenue while still fitting into the unique and rare natural aesthetic of our portside town, such as residential developments or mixed-use commercial residential developments, such as the ones we have downtown right now with those multi-million-dollar condos with our wonderful winery or wine attached to it. Also, those could boost our local economy, bring in immediate tax revenue, things like awesome outpost markets that I drive out of town to go to, and that work with surrounding farms and businesses. Number 2, I'm most concerned about our city's ability to afford the unforeseen costs that come with a project that has such acute demands on our environment, energy, and infrastructure. A lot can go wrong and usually does over the course of decades with projects like these that could potentially contaminate our environment, our beautiful lake and shoreline, and deplete surrounding energy resources with costs that are yet undetermined. Things like batteries, solar, wind power, these clean energy solutions, they do tend to provide problems down the road when you can no longer use the batteries and the solar. And I'm wondering about those costs and what the plans are for that, for maintenance long-term, well after construction. Thank you for your time. Please consider the uniqueness of this area of our state and how vital it is to protect it. When making developmental decisions about our city, please do so with mindfulness and stewardship. Development can be done in our town that is beautiful, safe, and aesthetically pleasing. Please consider voting no on the TID number 5 if these issues have not been addressed with clear and evident solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder to our guests tonight who are publicly speaking, please make sure to stay for the entire meeting to hear the answers to many of those questions. All right, next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Mike Beester. I live at 305 South Garfield. Now, I've lived in Port Washington for around 13 years. I moved here with my family almost by accident in 2012 and instantly fell in love with the natural beauty and the historic charm of our city. And since I moved here, I've never once considered moving anywhere else in Wisconsin. And so I just want to say thank you to the council and the police for giving us, the community, this forum to voice our concerns. And I think in the last meeting, there were a lot had been suggested about nefarious motivations of certain people, and I don't think that's fair. I truly believe everybody in this room wants the best for the city. We just disagree a little bit about how to get there, and I think there's some misunderstanding of the scale of the project, and there's maybe some failure to do their homework. Whatever the power needs of 1 to 3 gigawatts, 2 gigawatts is enough to power over 1 million homes. And I just don't think you can expect to add that level of energy to the grid without seeing a spike in energy prices like what we've seen in Ohio and Northern Virginia. I'm also concerned about what happens to the building when it becomes obsolete in 5 to 10 years and as a blighted area and the effect on property values. And I don't know that we've necessarily been good neighbors to our surrounding communities like Saukville and Fredonia. They were very upset with the lack of communication early in the project. Now, I don't blame anyone in leadership for what's happening. I think we were preyed upon by an enormous corporation who knew we did not have the proper resources to do our due diligence on some of these issues. And so I think there's still a narrow window to do the right thing and show us, as your constituents, that our city is not for sale. I implore you not to allow this project to happen with a TID. Waiting 18 years to start seeing tax benefits from this project is a lot to ask of us. So what I would ask is that you consider putting this to a referendum, at least for the TID, and see whether the citizens agree or whether we'd like to have a little bit more input on the financing portion of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brendan Evans. Currently an IST student at UW Milwaukee, and also a member of Socialist Alternative.
Brendan, we need you to tell us your street address and city,
Yeah,
please.
4055 North 7th Street. I want to say, while AI is a new and exciting technology, it is important to know when we should take a step back and assess the issues with allowing the construction of these data centers. $8 billion and over 600 acres of land will be used for Vantage data centers, but as only the infrastructure itself. Vantage Data Centers plans on taking 1.2 million gallons of water from the lake and using it in its closed-loop cooling system. However, there's another elephant in the room. the electricity demands, Vantage claims that they will be using mostly clean energy, but with the possibility of the company annexing and building more around their campus, the chances of them using their proposed percentages of clean energy is even more unlikely. Power lines are being built through the properties and over the homes of hundreds of people along the coastline for this data center. And to top it off, there is going to be a regional cost-sharing mechanism, according to the ATC representatives. This is really concerning and detrimental to the working class in this area because, according to multiple studies across the U.S., in places where there have been data centers built, people have seen electricity utility price increases of up to 267%. Outside of environmental and economic consequences of building this data center campus for people not only of Port Washington, but people across the state, one must ask, what do we gain from a project of this size? Besides the creation of temporary jobs during construction, data centers typically do not require nearly as many workers as people believe. Multiple sources stating 300 people at most will be employed year-round after this project is complete. What this company plans to do here long-term is not nearly proportionate to what the consequences of people of Port Washington and other communities affected by this project will have to deal with. The last thing I would mention is that there is no guarantee that this project will deliver on anything that it has stated. AI in its current form is entirely running on the hype of what it could possibly do, not what it can do. What happens if the company cannot turn profit and pay their fair share back to the community? The idea that this will not end up as another Foxconn situation is extremely short-sighted, and the idea and the fact that politicians are given the green light to these companies to come into our state, not only to destroy our ecosystems, but force their constituents to take on the brunt of these insane costs that come with the creation and use of these AI data centers will only hurt the working class.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chris Johansson, 2444 Deerfield Court in Saukville. Setting a timer here so I don't run out of time. All right, you had a presentation last week that included a lot of information about the economic impacts, data, figures, tables, et cetera, taking into account what the data center will do for this area. It conveniently left out any sort of impact as far as power and utility costs. Everyone has been mentioning that so far. Other than tax revenue, there's no benefit to this area of a data center. What is created, what happens behind the walls, behind the fences, does not affect us unless it's through a phone or an app or something else. It goes to the cloud, and that's that. The hundreds of jobs that are going to be created are probably offset by the farming jobs that were on the land that was taken. I believe there should have been a full referendum for the project. I know that's not common on private developments. However, something of this magnitude in this area, and additionally, when you look at the ATC plan for the power and the 5 counties that are going to be affected by the power lines and the cost of that and how that gets dispersed, there should have been more transparency with that. And that leads me into this TIF discussion or TID discussion that the TID does not, I believe, include anything with regards to the power consumption, the power construction to get power to the facility. And I believe that it should. I believe we're allowing a potential trillion or multi-trillion-dollar company to get away with not paying their fair share for the infrastructure that's required to be here. Regardless if the power is under your jurisdiction or not, as you claimed last week and other times before, you are the ones who are bringing this project here. You are the ones that are bringing this demand of power to this area. And you are the ones that are ultimately responsible for all of our bills increasing. The ATC project is 1.3 to 1.6 billion per their presentation. And some quick math, there's roughly 508,000 people in the 5 counties that are affected. That's going to be somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000 per person, not per house, but per person, just for the construction of the power lines, the substations, et cetera. That does not take into account any sort of cost for usage. We don't really know what that is. The 1.3 gigawatt to 4 gigawatts, whatever, is somewhere between LA and 3 LA's worth of power. So I hope you vote no tonight
Thank you, sir.
on this TID. Thank you.
Dan Jones, W4792 County Road F, Waldo. Since data centers and things are relatively new, like how long ago was the first time you ever heard of one? Like how can you put so much confidence in a technology that is relatively new? I bet you everyone on this board heard of them within the last 5 years. Look at Foxconn, look at Morgan Aircraft, look at Orion Energy Systems, all TIF districts, all TID, give me money, government. And then what happens? Things change, their intended use doesn't happen, they close up shop before they even start operating, they move to different places and do the same thing all over again under a different name. I mean, spend an evening looking around on the internet, you'll find companies that have done this time and time again to governments. So what makes you guys so sure that this isn't gonna happen again? So what I did was I wrote a resolution, like the whereas, therefore be it resolved type of resolution that shows your confidence in this and how it's not gonna backfire. And I ask you guys, if you are that confident, put your liability on this piece of paper and put it into the public record, saying that if anything happens, anything fails, you will take financial responsibility for whatever you can. It'll be a fraction of the damage. But hey, if you're so confident in this decision, put it into the public record. And if you can't do that, then you're gambling. Do I get to walk up and give this to you, or is that
Just
not
hand it to
allowed?
the police officer behind you, please.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Mike Jenkins. I live at 5400 Sunny Ridge Road, Belgium, Wisconsin. I'm here to urge you to reject and vote no on this proposed $175 million TID for the new data center project. First, this is an extremely large $175 million public subsidy for very few permanent jobs. Data centers typically create few permanent positions for the amount of investment, and developer projections are proven to be wildly optimistic. Second, creating this TID means diverting tax growth revenue away from schools, police, fire, and roads for decades. Even if the project performs well, the benefits won't be reached in our classrooms and public safety services until the TID closes, which is 15 to 20 years. Third, the developer is seeking an exemption to Wisconsin's 12% TID cap. That cap exists to protect communities like ours from financial risk and overexposure. Fourth, this facility will use significant amounts of water and energy, and we haven't even seen transparent, underlined, engineering level data on those impacts. Port's water system already has defined capacity limits, and on the energy side, we've already seen the new transmission lines required to cross family farms and houses in neighboring communities, greatly reducing their quality of life and their property values. This project hurts families. Fifth, valuation appeals and abatements are a very real risk with data centers across the country. If that happens here, the city could be left paying debt on infrastructure that no longer has the tax base to support it. Finally, unlike mixed use or manufacturing developments, a data center brings little community spillover, no new retail, no housing boost, no downtown foot traffic. If Port is going to tie up hundreds of millions of dollars in TID capacity, it should be for projects that deliver visible, broad-based benefits. This project has lacked transparency, oversight, and community involvement from day one. I've been coming to these meetings since April, and there's been consistent feedback ranging from concern to outrage from your constituency surrounding this and the surrounding communities. Not only has this mayor and this council approved this monstrosity without firm and ironclad guarantees, they are doubling down on this mistake with a massive corporate welfare program based on open-ended commitments with no teeth. From a TID perspective, don't double down and give these tech companies corporate welfare phony projections on an uncertain future. A data center investment should require at a minimum strict pay-as-you-go financing, developer guarantees, no 12% cap exemption, transparency on water and energy data, and real clawbacks if promises aren't met. That is your fiduciary responsibility, not to rubber stamp this boondoggle and mortgage Port Washington's future. I ask you to vote no.
Before the next speaker, sir, I hope that you stay here tonight because your list of expectations will be met. Next speaker, please.
I'm Jonathan Rizk, 1151 West Baldwin Court in Mequon. I'm an Ozaukee County resident who is here once again to advocate against the data center and the TID. Port Washington residents should critically think about two financial realities. The first is that the taxes of your schools, fire department, library, parks, water utilities, and all other tax jurisdictions will remain constant for the duration of the TID. Don't believe me? Then read the TIF manual published by the Wisconsin Department of Revenue. The second of these realities is that we have been experiencing inflation on a national scale for years. Both of these financial realities will cause all of the public works that this community holds dear to be underfunded year over year because of the fixed income they'll be forced to endure, combined with the enduring increased costs due to inflation. As we all know, the data center will consume an enormous amount of power, and Ozaukee residents will be footing the bills. There are already data on the power consumption of data centers and the increased electricity rates of surrounding communities. Down in Illinois, Chicago and the surrounding residents are seeing 10% and 20% increases in their electricity bills right now because of the huge amount of power that the existing data centers in Chicago consume. But the problem does not end there because those data centers were not built with AI in mind. To train AI models at scale, a lot of computing resources are needed, which means they will consume an enormous amount of electricity relative to the old style of data centers. Previously, Cloverleaf stated that the Port Washington data center would consume about 3.5 gigawatts of power. Now, Vantage is stating that it will only take 1.5 gigawatts of power, but with plans for future expansion. These data center companies and the Common Council are trying to deny the full cost of the AI data center to the people. This data center is not about improving the city of Port Washington. It's about helping the profits of tech companies and power companies for their shareholders. We Energies and ATC want these data centers just as much as the tech companies do because more power demand means more profit for them. This is a scheme to subsidize corporate greed at the cost of us working class people and the environment.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sophie Scholl. I'm here to speak against the construction of this data center. It's already been said that AI data centers...
Excuse me. Name and address, please.
Oh, yes, sorry.
And please remember that it needs to be relevant to the TIF. This is a planning commission, not the city council.
Totally heard.
Thank you.
My name is Sophie Scholl, 12101 West Bluemont Road. It's already been said that the AI data centers, like the one planned here in Port Washington, are going to be catastrophic for the environment and for working people, not even just in terms of skyrocketing energy costs and environmental damage, but also in terms of water consumption alone. We would be better off without it. It's going to be working people who are stuck with the check for the massive utility costs and power line constructions that will cut through our hometowns. And this investment in AI isn't coming out of some abstract desire to advance technology for its own sake. Billionaires and tech giants are funding it for one reason. They think it'll cut their labor costs. They think they can use it to de-skill workers and eliminate jobs. It's going to affect hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of working people. Tech CEOs themselves are warning that AI could wipe out nearly half of entry-level jobs. Months ago, Microsoft laid off thousands of workers all at once, saying that advancements in AI had made them redundant. This is going to raise already rising unemployment rates and make it even harder for young people with or without a college degree to find a job. And it's not just a climate change issue, it's an issue of jobs, wages, and conditions, and something the labor movement needs to actively oppose. Across the nation, many unions, especially in the building trades, including in Milwaukee, have been looking at this in a very short-term way. The idea is that it'll create jobs in construction and therefore it's all good. I think that's the wrong attitude. These data centers provide some jobs in the short term, but they're going to destroy other jobs once they're built and make life much worse for working class people in the areas they're built. I think the climate movement needs to link up with the power of the working class and organized labor, and we need to demand of these people, of the government bodies that are pushing these through, that if the building trades need work, we shouldn't have an energy-sucking, water-guzzling data center. We should do things like tax the rich to fund social housing. We should fund green infrastructure to repair our crumbling roads and bridges. And we should build a powerful climate movement to make it impossible for these plans to proceed. So I urge you to vote no on this. Thank you.
Sophie? What city do you live in?
Milwaukee.
Thank you.
Deborah Andrus, 1574 Parkway Drive, Port Washington, Wisconsin. I am not as eloquent a speaker as some of those that have spoke before me, but I am here because I'm very dismayed about how this has transpired within our community, and I feel that there has been a lack of transparency and that I have been sold out. I have lived here over 40 years. When a TIF is created, our property values will initially go up, meaning our property taxes will go up as well. We've seen this based on the new assessments that just came. This increase allows the property taxes to be diverted to the TIF. The base value, as I understand it, will continue to support our schools, parks, fire, and police departments. But any increase we see in our taxes will go to support the TIF. Let's call the TIF what it is. It is a generous subsidy to whoever owns that property. It puts a corporation ahead of our schools, our children, our public health, and our safety. For public dollars to pay for new infrastructure, it's a costly subsidy. Normally, when a corporation builds a large new project, it pays for the new infrastructure. When tax money flows directly to subsidize the construction of private infrastructure and buildings, it's about raising the developer's profit. When Port Washington creates a TIF, the tax diversions will come at the expense of our schools, county government, and other local taxing bodies. In a typical revenue split, 1/2 of property taxes might go to schools, 1/4 to a city, another 1/4 to a county. But the TIF diversion captures all of these incremental streams and pours them into one small area for decades. In other words, the city gains power under this TIF to capture money that would normally be used to educate our children, staff fire departments, etc. Sometimes defenders of the TIF say, well, but what for? If we don't have the TIF, we're not going to come and build in your community. Well, this doesn't exactly protect, I think, the interests of the community, and it is a way to leverage the project. And it is a generous subsidy to an unnamed corporation. We know Vantage is building this data center, but who is this data center for? We don't know. I'm not in support of this TIF, and I feel it should be put to a public referendum, unlike what happened when this initial project was undertaken. Again, I'm very, very disappointed in my community and my governing officials. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone is interested in the hallway, there is a flow chart that hangs that demonstrates the diligence we did on the 3 potential avenues for the TIF versus the city paying for it. So take a look at that if you get a chance.
Hi, Caleb Tydrick, 4465 Weilers Way, town of Port Washington, Wisconsin. I came back, sorry. I think the TIF is a terrible waste of money. I understand that they wouldn't build this thing without the leverage that it creates. I don't think that's a reason to have one, especially when smaller developers struggle to get the same TIFs to build things like multifamily housing and the like. This project has gone through so quickly. I remember when you guys couldn't get a parking lot demolished for Inventors Brew Pub for about 5-6 years. So I just think it's a little bit ridiculous. I listened to what Dana Burns had to say last night, Vantage's VP, and you would think this thing is from God himself if you listen to her speak. So I can see why you guys buy what she's selling. But she lives somewhere probably nowhere near any of these data centers, and she's probably a multimillionaire as well. So I don't really think she has Port Washington's best interests in her heart. I think the TIF is a terrible idea. Thank you.
We are at 30 minutes. And we're going to continue on with the meeting and continued comments potentially during the public hearing. So thank you all. I appreciate your candor and civility during those comments, and they were captured. All right, next agenda item here for the public, for the Planning Commission meeting is a public hearing regarding the proposed creation of a tax incremental district for the tax incremental district number 5, the proposed boundaries of the district, and the proposed project plan for the district. Notice has been given that the City of Port Washington will hold this joint review meeting this evening. I'm going to call that hearing to order. And as a result, this meeting was published accordingly, and notice is given that this is a public hearing to be held this evening at 6 o'clock at the City Council Chambers in Port Washington. The intent of the hearing is to discuss the district's proposed boundary that is identified on the map included in the notice. Based on the planned use of the properties within the proposed district boundary, the city expects to designate the district as suitable for industrial development. Projects to be undertaken within the district and costs to be incurred will be for the purpose of promoting industrial development and will include payment of cash grants as development incentives to owners, lessees, or developers of land located within this district. Professional services and organizational costs, administrative costs, financing costs, and other costs as may be necessary to implement the district's project plan. All interested parties will be given a reasonable opportunity to comment within the 30 minutes. Speakers for and against on the proposed boundary of this TID. At this time, we welcome public hearing comments. Are there any speakers in favor? Any speakers in favor? Yes, sir. Were you going to speak, sir? Otherwise, I'm going to. Well, go ahead. This is the hearing part, so just again, please state your name and address.
My name is Jonathan Abraham, union carpenter out of local 231 7507 Hennessy Avenue. This project would mean a great deal for working families like mine and other people in the building trades. Data centers will mean long-term economic growth for the state and immediate good-paying jobs for folks in the community. As industries and technology evolve, some types of construction will never return. Data centers are a growing sector that Wisconsin should embrace to keep us working. These are the types of opportunities that kept me working throughout my career and taking care of myself and my brothers and sisters' families. Apprentices need real-world experiences to grow and build their careers. This emergence offers a new path forward for skilled tradespeople who are just trying to enter the workforce and for journeymen like myself to finish out our career. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? All right, speakers who would like to speak against the proposed TID. And again, just as a reminder, during this public hearing, it must be relevant directly to the TID. Thank you, sir.
Sure. My name's Fred Nicora. My address is 6720 Sauk Trail Road, Town of Belgium. Also have a property, 312 Van Buren in Port Washington. I also do business in Port Washington. I've been active in the farmers market for the last 4 years. I've got a growing business. I do farmers markets in 4 towns in the area. Considering Port Washington as a place to actually open my brick and mortar. It's a growing business. I'm looking forward to doing that. Concerns I have with Port Washington. First of all, if you look at the geography of Port Washington, you do have a handicap. You're right butt up against the lake, so that limits in terms of what the total radius that I can pull business in, as part of the community. By placing the data center where you're placing it and having it part of the community, you're effectively blocking off another quadrant of the city. People don't want to really live around data centers. So as just, I'm going to say a practical matter from my perspective, it's a big hindrance in why I'd look at the other towns over Port Washington, just from the demographics alone. and the potential for the business to grow. So just something for your consideration. I think in the long run, you'll be shooting yourself in the foot in terms of tax potential. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Andrew Dellinger. I live on 3470 County Road KK in the town of Port Washington. I come here today not because I want to be here. I have 2 children at home that I would rather be watching the Brewers game with. But I'm here to speak directly to you about my opposition to this TIF and to the data center as a whole. This is corporate welfare. You are carving out, if you accept this, major benefits to a multi-billion-dollar corporation whose end objective in this is not to serve the interests of our community. And there may be tax revenue that comes as a result of this, certainly, but tax revenue does not fall back into my wallet or into my paycheck that I need to pay for my family's well-being with. What does come out of my paycheck is my energy bill. I think about kitchen table issues that every one of us in this room face when we have to think about trade-offs. What are we going to buy versus not going to buy because prices have gone up? And when I think about this as it relates to the TIF, the effect that this is going to have on every one of us in our personal lives is going to be magnanimous. We have the choice to let them fight in the free market like every other business and pay their way just like every other company inside this town, or we can subsidize them to do it. If you can see the amount of people who stand here against this today, we do not want to pay for this. Not out of our tax dollars, not what we pay property taxes for. We'd rather the same investment, the same amount you would be putting towards offset subsidies on this to go towards our schools. We're against this, and I stand against it. I stand against it for my family, for my children. I moved to the town of Port Washington not so I could live next to a data center that's 2,000 acres large. Moved here because it's a small town. It's just not right. And you guys should really reflect on who you're representing here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Samantha Dukas, 1129 North Marshall Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am not a Port resident. I'll be upfront about that. But as a child, I did spend a lot of time in Port. I have cousins and aunts and uncles who live in Saukville, and I have really fond memories of spending summers at the Port Washington Water Park with those cousins and with my aunts and uncles. And what always struck me was the small town charm of Port Washington. And obviously, that's not a substitute for development. Any growing city, any great city or town needs development. But what development does not look like is, like others have said, a 2,000-acre data center that is being built by a multi-billion-dollar company. These companies do not need handouts. Handouts represented by a TID that's going to purportedly save about $17 per household per year for residents. And that will almost entirely be offset by the cost of rising energy prices. It's simple supply and demand. When there's more energy users, there's less energy for residents. And it's already been projected that between this data center and the Microsoft data center in Mount Pleasant, that the data center energy will be equal to the amount of all households in the state of Wisconsin. The energy will offset.
You're bringing this back to the TIF?
Yes.
Okay.
The energy will offset the supposed tax benefits that are being granted by this project, and that serves the purpose for which this TID serves. Hence why it should be rejected. The Port Washington people don't need this. They don't need a data center that's going to, not even pay off for what it's purportedly doing. And I know much has been made. Mayor, you recently published an op-ed in the Ozaukee Press Graphic, and you were rightfully concerned about the sustainability of Port Washington's property tax base. Everybody is concerned about that. But in reality, As we've already said, for individual residents, it's not a trade-off that makes sense. And in that op-ed, you also detailed there was a storm coming on Port Washington. When I'm here, I see no storms. I see a community that's wanting to sacrifice for things that matter to it to get built, that will benefit it to get built. The school referendum that residents of Port Washington approved was approved because these residents want to spend their money on things that will improve the community rather than a data center they believe will not.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, the expectation is that it's relevant to the TID. Thank you. Other comments?
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Gauthier, 3283 Bay Hill Road. I'll try to keep...
And what city?
Pardon me?
What city?
3283 Bay Hill Road in Port Washington.
Okay, thank you.
I'll try to keep... I'll try to stick to the TIF, although I'm not sure, how we would define those parameters. We don't want this data center. We don't want the TIF. We don't want the data center with or without the TIF. But this project, we're talking like 8 billion, 10 billion. I've seen different numbers thrown around. I think we all have, because the whole process has been shrouded in secrecy for some reason. I'm not sure why that is. Well, I think we all know why that is, because if it were not opaque, we would not be talking about this. We would not have this data center on the table if this were not an opaque process. If you hadn't signed all those NDAs, if you hadn't cut this deal in secrecy, we wouldn't be here right now, because the people of Port Washington don't want this. I know maybe there's a handful. There's some builders. There was a guy that spoke earlier. And I think the first speaker here, I didn't hear a lot because I was out in the lobby. We couldn't hear everything out there, so I don't want to repeat what people said. But the first guy who spoke said he didn't want to impugn anyone's motives or impugn anyone's character, right? And I respect that. I do. I get it. There's the builder who just spoke a couple of minutes before me. He wants a good job, right? I get that too. We all do. I'm a union guy myself. I understand that. The people whose property was purchased at a very handsome profit, I don't begrudge them either. You know what I mean? This mega billion-dollar corporation backs up a truck to my front lawn and says, here's a truckload of cash. I'd be tempted to take it. I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. I mean, just out of curiosity, who here...
Sir, please, you got to stay relevant to the TIF in the public hearing.
Sure.
We're not going to take public votes,
Yeah,
et
I got
cetera.
it.
So
Well,
please just use your time wisely.
For sure. How much more time do I have, incidentally?
46 seconds.
Okay, great. I don't think anyone here got a truckload of money backed up to their front lawn. I don't think you guys did. Why are you voting for this then, when the people of Port Washington don't want it? Period, the end. What's the point of representative democracy? You guys should all know what the point of representative democracy is. You're here serving us. You don't know what we want? Put it to a referendum. It's that simple. Don't put it to a referendum. Tell us why. Tell us why you don't care what the people of Port Washington want. Do it publicly. Tell us why. Do it here tonight. Do it in an op-ed. Tell us why you are bucking our will. Thank you.
Sir, just real quick, one point, and I normally don't interject this, but this project did not have a non-disclosure agreement. That was a key part of the initial conversations. We began the conversations publicly in mid-December, just for your awareness. All right, other speakers.
Hi, my name is Amanda Farmer, 208 West Dodge Street here in Port. I'm going to start with a couple quotes. The Decision Lab is an applied research and innovation firm. The sunk cost fallacy is prevalent in political sphere, where it can influence policy decision and spending. Governments may continue to fund large-scale projects that are no longer effective or relevant simply because of the significant resources already committed. Politicians might fear the political repercussions of abandoning the project as it could be perceived as a waste of taxpayer money. However, continuing to invest in ineffective policies or projects because of sunk costs can lead to further ineffectivities and missed opportunities for better solutions. The Concord fallacy is a famous example of sunk costs impacting large-scale decisions. In 1956, a committee met to discuss a supersonic airplane. French and British engineer manufacturers and their governments were involved in the project, which was estimated to cost almost $100 million. Long before the project was over, it was clear that there was an increasing cost and that the financial gains of the plane, once in use, would not offset them. However, the project continued. The manufacturers and governments followed through on their project because they had already made significant financial investments and dedicated a lot of time to the project. Ultimately, this led to millions of dollars wasted, and the Concorde operated for less than 30 years. Vantage, who is a $300 billion backing, has only been in business for 15. Strategic quitting is something that can understand that sometimes the best decisions is to strategically quit a project or situation that's no longer working, even if you've already heavily invested in it. Did you know in Dundee Township in Michigan, pulled out a 750 total acre Cloverfield water and sewer pre-agreement? We want to be respectful of the residents. We want to educate them about the truth about data centers. A lot of things and a lot of the concerns we're going to talk about tonight and how they are misconceptions in the industry. So we really want to educate them about the truths about water consumption, about noise, about power rates. The Cloverfield Representative Aaron stated, data centers impact their local environments and surrounding communities in numerous ways. While data centers are attractive to states and countries or counties for their tax revenue they generate and to utility companies for their massive energy demand.
Thank
I
you.
just had
If you would like to submit the rest of your written statement to us, we will take a look at it.
email to you, or how do I?
You can email it to us, yeah.
Okay, sure.
It's on the website.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We have time for about 5 more speakers, and just a reminder that I've been very generous with the breadth of the conversation. Please make sure it is directly related to the TID, or I'm going to ask you to step away from the podiums to give other people the opportunity to speak to the TID. Thank you.
At school, we all talk about...
Name and address.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
My name is Aiden. Aiden Dyken. I live on 208 Antoine Drive in Port Washington.
Thank you.
All right. At school, we talk a lot about actions. How taking responsibility for your actions is a very adult and mature thing to do. I'm told this a lot. The question is here, who's taking responsibility for this project? Is it all of you here? Is it just the mayor? Is it the whole city? Is it the people in this room? Who's going to take accountability for it? Because you say that your actions will benefit the city and the people in it, and that it'll bring in jobs and money, and it'll make this an attraction of some sort, and it'll do something for our community. But right now, I don't think the community wants that, you know? I don't think the community wants to support what's happening right now in our city. This is our space as much as it is yours. And when we say we don't want this, and you say we do, I think we know what we want. I think we know what we want as a collective, as a group of people, that we don't want something like this to happen. Because as a person who's hearing you all say that this is going to bring in a lot of jobs and this is going to benefit our community, I can tell you that for some people it won't. You know, my dad works in web development, and he lost his job at a company recently because they were like defunding a lot of their permits, and his branch was losing a lot of people because of these new AI companies that are rooted in AI, just, you know, doing what he does, just in a snap without the authenticity of what a human even does. And that's what you're supporting when you do this. And I think that a lot of people here know what you're supporting when you do this. And we all say no, and you still say yes.
That was excellent. Thank you. Other public comments?
Hi, good evening. My name is Christine Lejeune. I live at 137 East Cleveland Street here in Port Washington. Like everyone else ahead of me, I'm quite baffled as to why we are providing a multi-million-dollar company with corporate welfare through this TID decision. Also, when there are so many unknowns about why and how this data center is going to operate. Now, we've heard a wonderful discussion and presentation from our mayor, from Vantage, that, talking points, talking about closed loop systems and so forth. But when you ask for exact details, where are the specs? Give me the engineering specs so I understand. How does a closed loop system operate? Does it in fact actually work as they are claiming? We want transparency. And going ahead tonight with a decision on a TID that will impact all of us for generations to come. Once you build this, the infrastructure is in place, the land is blighted, the chemicals will go into the closed loop system to keep the water in place, right? So there are environmental impacts that are going to impact all of us, especially younger people, for generations into the future, right? The Native Americans think 7 generations into the future. Please think 7 generations or more into the future about what is going to happen once you build this infrastructure. Also, there are so many unknowns right now about these data centers. There are so many data centers being built globally across the nation. How do we even know that this will not become redundant by the time it is supposed to go into operation? Right? How do we even know that we will see the tax benefits once the TID period is over, given the average lifespan of data centers currently estimated between 15 and 25 years? There's so many unknowns right now that we need answers to before making such an important decision that is so crucial to not only Port Washington, but to thousands of people around in the surrounding counties. We also have not, as already previously mentioned, been good neighbors. We have completely affected houses and buildings and environmental spaces throughout all of the surrounding counties. And so please, I ask you, do not vote yes on this TID, because there are questions that need to be answered first. And you owe that to all of your constituents, that we have transparency so that we know that you are making this decision in all of our best interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing then. Yes, please make sure to let me, I didn't know that you were ready.
Hello, Joan Baumgartner, 5900 Wasaki Road, Town of Trenton, Washington County, Wisconsin. This is going to impact me in my neighborhood because some of those high power lines are going to come right through our neighborhood. And my question, to keep it to the TID, is why did the city not have a referendum for the TID with transparency and authenticity to those you represent in your city of Port Washington? I don't understand why you found a workaround so you didn't have a referendum for this immense TID you're putting together. I think you would have represented your constituents had you done that instead of finding that end around. $175 million. It's corporate welfare, pure and simple. And for a multi-billion-dollar company to hand them that kind of funds for their infrastructure, I think is not doing your constituents any favors. Secondly, or third, I'm not sure which, I don't know or have not seen any relevant information or studies pertaining to how the utilities will rise in cost for the water for the local residents, as well as for the electrical costs for the citizenry, not just in Port Washington, but the surrounding communities. Because with the amount of energy this data center is going to be requiring, I can't even imagine how much our utility bills are going to be increased due to the amount of need that center is going to be gobbling up. And I don't know if you have the studies, if you'd be willing to look at those studies or have them run before you actually vote on the TID. But I think that would be, at a minimum, you could do for your own populace. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to the end of the public comments. And again, I would remind you, many of the questions you have asked tonight, we have posted the answers to. And this is not part of the agenda this evening, but please take a look at that. Please contact me if you have questions or concerns you'd like to sit down. And at our council meeting this coming Tuesday, I'll be doing a report out on my meeting with We Energies and ATC, advocating on behalf of the voices that we heard last week at our council meeting. So with that, then we're going to move into agenda item number 5 here, which is the tax incremental district. Number 5, consideration and possible action on Plan Commission Resolution 2025-3, a resolution establishing the boundaries of and approving the project plan for tax incremental district number 5. The project that the Plan Commission is being asked to provide a recommendation for via the resolution to the Common Council is for the establishment of a new tax incremental district boundary and a corresponding project plan for the proposed tax district number 5, TID 5, for the Vantage Data Center campus. Tonight we will hear from both our city as well as our consultative services. The staff recommendation is to approve the Plan Commission Resolution 2025-3. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as part of the approved developers agreement between the city and Vantage, a copy of which is in your packet, it's also on the City Vantage Project website, a tax increment district will be established to provide reimbursements payments to Vantage for upfront costs paid by them. Again, those are listed in your project plan, and then we will get into those with greater detail in just in a sec. The staff report, it summarizes the TIF, and at this point, I'll hand it over to Mr. Taves of Ellers, who is the project TIF consultant for this, and he can provide more detail on those summary points. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you. So the commission received a project plan document in your packet that represents the plan for the district. Again, it's a plan based on assumptions, and then also a resolution which, if adopted, would approve that plan and recommend its adoption by the council. What I'm going to do is give a brief overview of the key elements of the project plan, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have regarding its elements. Go to the next slide. So quickly, a quick overview of how tax increment financing works if you are not familiar with that. So a tax increment district is a geographical area that the city designates. So in this graphic, this would be represented by the blue area. And in this particular case, we anticipate the value of that property within the district to be roughly $120 million. That value will be set by the assessor later in 2026. So again, that's an estimate. The taxes that would be paid on that base value will be distributed to the city, the school district, the technical college, and the county in the same fashion that taxes are distributed for all property tax bills. The concept of TIF is that the city makes an investment in project costs, which we'll talk about in a moment. As a result of that expenditure of costs, you see increased value, and that's represented by the purple shaded area. In this particular case, the expectation is that that added value will be conservatively $2.1 billion. Now, while that value generates, it pays the same property tax rate as all properties within the city. Wisconsin has a uniformity clause. Everyone is taxed at the same rate, but the distinction between the base and the increment is that all of the taxes on the increment flow into the TID Special Revenue Fund, and that's what pays back the costs that are made. Now, one thing I wanted to address was the idea that this is somehow lost revenue for other taxing jurisdictions. That is not accurate. First, the taxes that would be generated by that incremental value will not occur if the district is not created. So these are not taxes that the city, the school, or other entity is foregoing. When the TID closes, and this would be the green area, then that value is released and all of the taxing entities spread their levies across that larger tax base, which results in a lower tax burden for all residents of the various taxing jurisdictions. We'll move to the next slide and talk. Yes.
Before you do that, could you go back to that slide, please? So one of the statements and concerns that was raised in the testimony before was that there's no immediate benefit for residents of the city of Port Washington. Can you address that again in the navy blue section there?
Sure.
The way we negotiated our agreement with Vantage was incredibly unique for a TID. Can you explain that? Because there is an immediate tax impact.
There was time spent in the negotiations to determine when the TID would be created. And that is why we are on the timeline we presently are. Had the TID been created prior to October 1st of this year, the base value would have been set as of the 1st of this year when the land was very low value. As part of the agreement, the base value is going to be set as of January 1st, 2026. That land value will go up from that low agricultural assessment to its present use as zoned for the data center project. And so what will happen is that increase in value, rather than getting picked up as increment within the TID, is going to become part of the tax base that immediately benefits, again, all of the taxing jurisdictions. So all other things being equal, if every jurisdiction's levy was the same as it was last year, as a result of having that additional 121 million, again, that's spread over a larger tax base now, and tax bills would go down.
Thank you for that. And the reason they will go down is because the city budget cannot go up.
Because of levy limits.
Because of levy limits. The way municipal funding works is the only way the city of Port Washington can grow is if we have net new construction year after year after year. And we put this in place to ensure that there would be immediate tax relief. So I appreciate that explanation.
The next slide identifies the proposed district boundary on the inset map. And the purpose for this TID is to implement the development agreement that has been entered into between Vantage and the city. There are several types of tax increment districts that can be created under the statute. This particular district will be created as an industrial TID with a data center exception. As an industrial TID, it has a 20-year maximum life. That's the longest under statute that it can remain open and collect tax increment to recover costs. The required finding for this type of a district is that at least 50% of the area is zoned and suitable for industrial development. As these lands were annexed from the town to the city, they were rezoned to I-3 Technology Campus District, which is an industrial zoning district. So in this case, the amount of industrial acreage is well over that 50% threshold, representing nearly all of the acreage within that boundary. Talk briefly about the legislative exceptions. So this was approved by the legislature, signed by the governor earlier this year as Act 16, specifically for the city of Port Washington as well as the city of Beaver Dam. So this TID will function in all respects like a normal industrial TID with a couple notable exceptions. With respect to limitations that this district will have that other industrial TIDs do not, is that all of its project costs must be related to a qualified data center. Secondly, this district can never become a donor and allocate positive tax increment to another district within the city. So these are prohibitions that are placed on this TID as a result of claiming the data center district exception. The benefit to using this exception is that the TID is not subject to the 12% equalized value test. What that means is when a municipality creates a TID or adds territory to a TID, there's a test that's applied. You take the base value of the district you're creating or amending, and you add to that the incremental value of any existing districts. The sum of that cannot exceed 12% of the city's overall equalized value. What this exception does is the value within this TID will not count towards that limit. At the present time, there is enough capacity within the city's 12% limit that it could create this TID and remain under 12%. However, due to the substantial value that will be generated within the district, without the exception, it would leave the city in a position where it would be unable to create any additional TIDs or add territory to any existing TIDs until this TID were to close. For that reason, the district would be created under this particular exception.
Todd, if I could just interject a quick question back on that one, or a statement as well, is one of the pieces that we had done when we worked with the governor's office and both our senators and assembly people is when we put in place the request for Act 16 for this TID creation, I think it's important for the community, bless you, I think it's important for the community to recognize that TID 5 cannot be a donor to other TIDs. And what that means is that we cannot use the increment or the dollars raised in that to pay off early or benefit any other TIDs in the city. That was something that we negotiated by design and intention to ensure future councils and mayors would not go into that TID to borrow against other projects or use that to slow down the payback for us as well. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank, the bipartisan effort to help us ensure that regardless of what happened tonight, that law was in place for both ourselves and Beaver Dam. So thank you, Todd.
Next, I'll address the project costs that are included in the plan. So the table of project costs lists the costs the city anticipates that it will incur over the life of the district. And again, these are estimates. So starting at the top, and I'll note that there are no funds that will be provided to Vantage that will directly be used to construct the buildings. This is a TID that is focused on the public infrastructure and the substation infrastructure required to enable development within this geographical area. So the first line item is roughly $175 million in City of Port Washington public infrastructure, primarily utilities. This is a conservative estimate that was prepared by the city's engineering consultant. The second would be to reimburse Vantage for the costs of a substation construction at roughly $91 million. A couple smaller items, there are payments to the town of Port Washington totaling $750,000 under the terms of a annexation agreement that Vantage is paying and can be reimbursed for. And at the moment, since the TID is not created, no increment is being generated, Vantage is paying the city's costs to evaluate and put together the district and the development agreement, and they are eligible to be reimbursed for that down the road. So the first four items, what I want to make sure is well understood is that these are all costs that Vantage is providing the capital for. The city will borrow no money to implement this TID project plan. Because Vantage is providing all of the capital upfront necessary to implement the plan, it will be reimbursed the principal amounts that it advances to the city, as well as interest at an agreed upon rate of 7%. The $187 million figure, that is the estimated interest based on the schedules included within the project plan that Vantage would be paid. So think of that, think of the first four items as the principal on a loan, and then the interest as the interest component. But again, this is not city borrowing. This is Vantage being reimbursed for the capital that they are upfronting to pay for the infrastructure and the other items. That totals to about $455.4 million, again, an estimate. The smaller line item is the city will have ongoing costs simply to administer the TID, and once tax increment is generated, the city will pay those costs directly from the monies coming in on an annual basis. That's the remaining $3.1 million. These sound like very large numbers, and they are, but we want to remember to look at this in the context of the private investment, which is estimated at a minimum of $8 billion. When we look at the $458 million that Vantage will be reimbursed, that represents reimbursement of about 5.7% of their total capital spend. So big picture, this TID, while they're large numbers, is a relatively small component of the overall cost of the project to the company.
Todd, one thing, just as you have that up there, if you wouldn't mind going back to that slide. Two questions that there were statements made tonight. This is a pay-as-you-go
Correct.
TIF. So as increment is created, value is created, they pay these payments are built in. What is the city's liability in the developers agreement for these dollars?
There is no liability. So pay-as-you-go simply means that they will pay their taxes like any other property taxpayer, and those taxes will be used to reimburse them for these costs while the TID is open. As I mentioned, the district has a maximum 20-year life. If we were to get to the end of the 20 years and they've not been fully reimbursed, then they lose that ability to recover that remaining amount. So because the city is not borrowing any money, there is no exposure financially for the city in terms of the way this TIF deal is structured.
So the inverse is true as well for the city of Port Washington as far as liabilities down the road. If the infrastructure that they are paying for us to build now to bring sewer water, remitigate the creek, the headwaters, et cetera, they leave, they hold the debt. There's no responsibility for Port Washington.
That is correct.
I hope that is clear. Thank you.
So in order to repay those costs, Vantage has to perform and create incremental taxes through the development of the site. Within the project plan, we have an estimate as to the likely value to be added, which again, we believe is conservative. The map identifies what we are referring to as the phase one development. That would be the yellow buildings in the outline. Then a second phase in that northern area where it says potential development. So on the table, the first two lines, 26 and 27, that's the estimated valuation of the phase one project, about $1.1 billion. For purposes of the plan, we've assumed phase two will proceed in 2030 and 2031, bringing the total incremental value of the district to roughly $2.1 billion. The city's present equalized tax rate, which includes the taxes levied by all jurisdictions, is about $14.50 per thousand. If you take that, assume it will remain the same, assume the values remain the same, don't appreciate or depreciate, just a linear projection, that would result in about $541 million in incremental taxes collected by the TID if it remains open its entire 20-year life. The graphic is an abbreviated version of the more detailed cash flow found in the project plan. On the left, we have revenues coming in. That would consist of the tax increments we just covered. And then the next column reflects developer payments for the items that I mentioned. So initially, payments to the town of Port Washington covering the city's cost, but then as the infrastructure build out starts to occur and takes place through the year 2034 in the assumed model, again, Vantage is providing that money to the city in order to pay for the costs of the public infrastructure as well as the substation, which they will fund. On the expenditure side, we've got those same dollars going out under the public improvement and substation column. And then that liability to Vantage for the monies they put up front. So again, this is the pay-as-you-go, payable only from the taxes that they generated and subject to the 20-year maximum life of the district. This set of assumptions indicates that it would take roughly 18 of the 20 years to fully recover. If additional value is generated, if costs for any of the project components come in less, that could accelerate the closure. If those variables move the other direction, it would cause the TID to close later, but again, subject to a maximum 20-year life by statute. From a scheduling standpoint, the Joint Review Board met earlier this afternoon. That is the body that's comprised of an entity from each of the taxing jurisdictions. They held their organizational meeting, reviewed the plan, and made necessary appointments. We're obviously here at the Plan Commission meeting this evening. If the Plan Commission chooses to proceed with the creation, it would go to the council next week, Tuesday, for first reading, and then tentatively scheduled for November 4th for second reading and potential approval. If we continue to move on that schedule, the Joint Review Board has agreed to meet on November 18th, at which time they would consider approval of a resolution to create the TID. That would be the last approval required to put the TID in place. And again, from a valuation standpoint, it would be effective January 1st of 2026.
Todd, I have a couple questions for you, and then I'm going to turn it over to the Planning Commission members for other questions. A few months ago, we had you come in and present to us. The city looked at 3 lanes, and again, they're hanging in the hallway for people to see. We investigated not providing a TID. And then we investigated what the impact would be to the city of Port Washington if we were to not create a TID and we were to cover the costs, i.e. the city would finance $175 million, or that we move that liability. Could you just briefly explain like how we came to the conclusion of the staff recommendation of the TID is the direction to go?
Yeah, and I would say that was largely a thought exercise, because one of the things that's a practical reality is that the city simply doesn't have the ability to finance that large of a project. There's a limitation for general obligation debt in terms of how much debt a municipality can have. And there's also simply the market realities of if you're going to borrow the money, you've got to be able to pay the money back. And so again, it was an exercise we went through. Practically speaking, you couldn't implement that due to market realities. But the other thing to keep in mind is when you create a tax increment district, you are leveraging the taxing, or you're leveraging the taxes of all the taxing entities which ultimately benefit from the development in the district. If the city were to not create a TID and look to finance this, you would only have the ability to capture the city portion of the taxes. So you've got far less revenue coming in as opposed to the TID scenario. So, we reached a pretty quick conclusion that creating a tax increment district is the only way that this amount of capital could be raised through the development agreement on the private side and then repaid, potentially within that 20-year life of the TID or sooner.
I think one of the other pieces too that, Mr. Harris, could you go back 3 slides, I think, where it shows that one right here. So where it says reimburse substation costs, one of the pieces that was brought up tonight was that our electric bills were going to go up in the region as a result of this project. Those costs are being incurred by Vantage, and that is what that number is reflected of, correct?
For that element of the electrical system, that's correct.
Right. So that increase as well as those costs, and Vantage Corporation is liable for those incremental increases for power to their own site that will not be moved on to local residents.
Correct.
And in the public infrastructural costs, there's a pretty extensive list in there that I don't, it took me a little while to understand as well. This is a big maybe list. So this is a very conservative list of every potential contingency possible. It includes our agreement with the town of Port Washington to build out an infrastructure for the town in Canelsville for sewer and water. It includes things like creek remediation, potential bluff remediation if we have to touch anything down there. It covers a tremendous amount of other secondary and tertiary infrastructural things that the city of Port Washington cannot afford. And those are the types of details that are being glossed over in the greater discussion here that I think are important. And that is something that, in our continued conversations, if this passes tonight, we will continue to share. Any other insight on any of those pieces, or Claude, are there any other pieces of that infrastructural investment that I'm missing that would be important for the public or the commission to understand? Okay. Mr. Ehrlich.
Yes, a question about if you go to the one, the kind of the more detailed one.
And Mike, can you just move your mic closer so your volume's higher?
Sure. So my question is, so we kind of talk about what's coming in and what's going out. How is the interest addressed with that? Is that under the column of other costs?
So on the table that is on the screen, that would be included within that developer reimbursement column.
Okay.
So that's both the
what I thought.
return of the amount that they provided up front as well as that interest component.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, wonderings, or concerns? Mr. Strom?
I guess it's more of a comment, Todd, and you can, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but so some of the infrastructure to run sewer and water out to Vantage is going to run past properties that are not included in the TID. Those properties connect into those utilities. We immediately see that revenue, that tax base. Is that correct?
In the utility revenue?
Yes.
You would.
And if it increases development, we would.
Correct.
So Roger, I mean, just to help out, you're discussing the east side of LL and those property owners who have articulated a desire to develop and put homes out there that would have otherwise had to have paid for this infrastructure themselves.
Correct. Yep.
A secondary benefit. Other questions, wonderings, or concerns?
And then I guess then the other thing, if I mean, you mentioned Vantage Phase 1, Phase 2. I don't know if that's 2 buildings and then another 2 buildings. If they build 3 buildings up front or all 4 at one shot, that just improves the picture. Is that correct?
The quicker that buildings are built, will improve the cash flow.
Other questions or wonderings? All right, just a couple of other things, just while we have members of the community and our neighbors here to recognize is, this TID begins at the beginning of this year, but so does the new valuation of the property as it stands today once it is assessed. So the taxing entities of the school district, the city of Port Washington, the county, and the Milwaukee Area Technical College will immediately see an increased valuation that they will levy against. And that has the potential to hold or even decrease property taxes on all 4 of those entities. Those 4 areas and groups concerned have certainly started to run that out. Second thing is, for those of you who are here, if you want to see a case study of what the consequences of this level of investment is I would ask you or expect you to look at what took place in Verona, in the Verona area, with what Epic has done and the difference in the shifts there, and how that has transformed that community's infrastructure. As just a reminder, as Todd had stated, the city of Port Washington has no financial liabilities as Vantage is paying for and supporting all those different components, and through the increment, we'll be paying that back over time. And then the final piece is, and I think this is an important part, everything that we saw tonight is conservative, and it's kind of a mind exercise if you're willing to do it, which is, they are showing us the $8 billion as the least possible value for the project, and it's very likely to be more, while we are showing the absolute highest potential costs against the project in that formula. So those pieces were contingent. We heard in testimony at the Joint Review Board that I think there's a $10 million contingency built into that total overall cost, and I expect that is managed really well, like we have with other city projects. So overall, I appreciate the diligence done on your part and your parties to run this exercise out, something we've been talking about for quite a while. So I appreciate that, Todd and Bob. Any other questions after that? Roger?
I guess just to run some quick math, at $2 billion, that's the equivalent of 4,000 $500,000 homes.
As far as having to build that for increment. Any other questions? Otherwise, the question on the table is, should the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2025-3, a resolution establishing the boundaries of and approving the project plan for tax incremental district number 5? There is a motion. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any questions or concerns on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. That takes us into agenda item number 6, which is a zoning code rewrite. Mr. Harris. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I have another piece that I have. I wanted to invite up a representative of the Vantage Corporation who had asked to speak to the TID. Please keep the civility that we've enjoyed all night.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, my name is John Stevenson. I am Vice President, Public Policy for Vantage Data Centers. I lead our government relations, economic development, and community engagement team. We're excited about coming to Port Washington because of this community and the opportunity to build the future of technology here and now that will lead to improved productivity, healthcare outcomes, and scientific discoveries. I know I'm not going to be able to answer all the thoughtful questions and concerns raised here tonight, but I do want to share a reaffirmation of our company's commitment to this agreement and to the city of Port Washington. We want to be a true part and neighbor of this community, and we are committed to being a good partner by ensuring you have good paying union jobs, the environment and the lake are protected and improved, the quality of life that defines Port Washington is maintained, and ensuring that your tax and power bills don't go up due to our project. As Mr. Daines outlined, the development agreement that we have committed to with the city of Port Washington ensures that local taxpayers will not bear any costs associated with the project. We will fund all upfront infrastructure improvements and be reimbursed over time through the TID and funded entirely by new property tax revenue from the project. The estimated $120 million land value will generate approximately $650,000 per year in new tax revenue for Port Washington beginning in 2027. And once the TID closes, the city will be able to collect millions in new property tax revenue annually based on the full assessed value of the project, money that will go to the Port Washington Saukville School District, Ozaukee County, and the Milwaukee Area Technical College for their benefits. The long-term revenue will help ease the burden on residential taxpayers who, we understand, currently shoulder 80% of the city's tax base. The investments we have committed to include upgrades to the water and wastewater treatment, infrastructure and facilities, water mains, sewer lines, power infrastructure, and construction of a new water tower. Things which address long-term infrastructure needs in Port Washington that would otherwise have to be funded by the city in the future. And more is coming in terms of details about what we will do, how we will do it, our community partnerships, our jobs, investment, and the opportunity we are excited to create together with you all and the broader city of Port Washington. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for the comments tonight, and look forward to coming to Port Washington. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Harris, the next agenda item is discussion item only on draft articles 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, 13, and 17 of the proposed zoning code rewrite. For our guests, this has nothing to do with the data center and is a discussion on future zoning across the city of Port Washington, in case you were wondering. Mr. Harris, I didn't mean to diminish your report.
Not at all.
You're up.
Pass it down. So,
And you have 3 minutes.
thank you. It's about the average I get. You're free to go as well. All right, so, as the commission knows, we've been working on revising or actually rewriting the entirety of the city zoning code. It was originally set up in, 19 Eisenhower administration, I think it was. It's seen some revisions, some amendments, but the entirety of the code has not been revised since. So if you recall, we started off with a kickoff, I think it was actually last winter. And we had some initial public outreach, public focus groups, some stakeholder interviews. We had a community-wide survey. And then just this past summer, we started touching on some of the major elements that our consulting team wanted some direction on as they come up and start submitting out working drafts for the rest of the year. And so here we are now with, we're anticipating all working drafts to get delivered to me by the end of this year. And then hopefully have a final draft by February, March, and then hopefully an April approval for the entirety of the new zoning code. So rather than, and this is all of what all of you wanted, and understandably so, you're not going to get a telephone book-sized document plopped in front of you come in March. So we're just going to take these by smaller bites for each month, beginning now at this meeting, and then going through into, I think it's February. I think March is kind of a catch-all in case we have some loose ends to take up. And so you kind of caught a break with this first meeting. This is kind of the standardized, kind of the basics of a zoning code. And there isn't, I wouldn't think, too much to discuss. It's just kind of the, a lot of it is guided by state statutes or what we already have in the code now. So if you read my report of the 7 draft articles, the 4 of them are pretty standard, pretty basic, pretty vanilla, but just kind of sets the baseline for the zoning code. And so what we're doing here tonight is just getting commission feedback to me. I pass that along to our team at Grafe and Civitech, and then we kind of wrap those chapters into a final draft. Moving forward, we get into elements of the zoning code that need a little bit more runway, both for you and for the community. That involves, the Rubik's Cube that is the downtown urban design elements and heights and architecture, getting into the land use table, what can go where, and then getting into a little more architectural standards that we see in zoning codes. As I've said before, our current code just does not have those urban design or architectural elements that you see in modern zoning codes. It's a product of its time. I think it served us well for a while, but now we're getting into a little more modern standards and have a little more design guidance moving forward. So with that, I'll just go through the draft articles for you and the comments I've had. Again, these are pretty minimal, just given the nature of the code. So jumping right in, and if you in your reviews, if you had anything, just jump in and let me know. But Article 1 is just general provisions saying this is the zoning code. We're using this zoning code, and it just puts out just kind of the basic legislative findings that this zoning code kind of is what guides land use decisions and zoning in and itself. Talks about compliance, liability, severability. Again, this is all kind of state standards and what you see in almost any zoning code throughout the state. I didn't have any comments for this chapter. Kind of same with Article 2. Again, this just kind of talks about interpretation, when you read the code, what is may, what is has, what is should. I think we don't have that now in our old code, and it kind of gave a little more latitude. I don't think in a good way sometimes for me to interpret that. So I think it provides takes a little more guesswork out of the must, the shalls, and the wills. And it talks about definitions of property lines, center lines. Again, sometimes there is a little more, there's a little more interpretation needed in some of these aspects. But again, I think this does a nice job of just providing me with a little more harder boundaries to follow. Again, I don't have any basic comments that jump out at me to report out to you for this one. Again, moving on to administrative bodies, this talks about what we can have. This sets up, again, a lot of this is guided by state statute. It talks about the makeup of the plan commission, how the makeup has to be. It talks about the role of the comprehensive plan. It talks about the official map, the official zoning map, that we have to have one, and talks about the miscellaneous powers. It does get into talking about, kind of the related city meetings, Board of Zoning Appeals, Historic Preservation Commission, Design Review Board. The only comment I have, and I touched on this summer, I don't know if the commission remembers this, there was a question of, right now, the city does not have a Historic Preservation Commission. We had the design review board, and currently that takes up a lot of good chunk of the design review. There's certificates of appropriateness, guiding or getting recommendations for buildings or developments, rehab, facade improvements, et cetera, that are either in historic buildings or in historic districts. They're the body that makes the recommendation of this body and makes the final approval. Our consultants asked if we wanted to pursue historic preservation. Just given the difficulty we have with getting volunteers on our existing boards, and with Design Review Board, been in existence for a number of years without any issues. I think we can keep the Historic Preservation Commission portion of this in the code. I would just say it may be established, and if we need that later on, if there's a, if the community wants that, we have it in place. I know, years before I got here, this came up, and I think there was some hesitation by the community. Here's my private property. I have to rehab it. I have to go according to these standards by this commission. I think that was a number of years ago. So we can have this bookmarked. We can have it in our back pocket. But as of now, given the number of vacancies on our current boards and committees, I think we can have it. I think we can still carry on with what we have now.
Bob,
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yes. Yes.
Bob, I'm actually going to ask that we build it into the zoning code. And I would like us to get creative with who sits on the Historic Preservation Commission with just a combination, because that could be a small group that's pretty malleable. And my recommendation would be that there would be two members of the Planning Commission and 1 or 2 members of the Design Review Board that would have a duplicit role in their appointments, because that would allow us to really have a smart dialogue and conversation, as well as Planning Commission members to be able to come back and say, this was reviewed, this is what we did. We have a responsibility to the historic preservation of our downtown and the buildings, and I think that would be really critical. I also really applaud your kind of evolution of thinking there of, I think 15, 20 years ago when we had difficulty with the downtown, post everybody leaving, now we're a little more vibrant, and I think the opportunity to ensure those historic preservation standards would be met. And I'm not sure if the rest of the commission agrees with me. I personally would like to see that in ordinance and code to ensure that Franklin Street stays Franklin Street. Mr. Ehrlich, I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, Mr. Mayor, I would agree that I think that it's extremely important to really have some type of a committee for that. I like the idea of maybe you've got some from the Architectural Review Board and the Plan Commission, because my fear is that it's just going to get forgotten about otherwise. And so I want to make sure that they have the ability to be able to really set that and help people as they're looking to develop the downtown and what they can and can't do, and make it a little bit clearer.
Any other thoughts on that? Thumbs up, thumbs down? It's okay,
No,
Mr. Newmeyer?
I would urge that too, since I'm the longest tenured member on council. We've never really had direction on historical buildings, and the amount of them we have, we really should have some guidance on that.
Yeah. I mean, Bob, I know I made a video about this, but what year was the last time that we reviewed the zoning codes in the city of Port Washington?
In the entirety?
Yes.
1960? Something like that?
I mean, things that were built the year this code went in would now fall under that historical guidance. So I think that's an important piece for us to be able to put in there, because future councils may or may not do that. The second question I have for you about this, because Article 3 is really the guidance and the rules that we do, and to Alderman Newmeyer's point, we really sent you on this journey because we wanted to make it very clear how to call balls and strikes as a commission and as a council. Is there going to be an ordinance overlay that comes with this? Like, here are all the ordinances now that need to be updated, or does the code cover that in its adoption? That might be the gentleman to my right's question.
Yeah, ask that again.
So is there going to be, so when we do the zoning code, there's all these new code pieces in there, but do we have to adjust ordinances in alignment with that And is there an ordinance overlay document that will come from the consultant? For instance, if we create a historic preservation commission, we have to add that to ordinance. That can't be driven by code.
I mean, this is an ordinance. The zoning code itself is an ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
But will there be an overlay of other ordinances that might impact it, so we don't have like a blue law? Is that part of the consultative services?
Well, when you say an overlay of ordinances, what do you mean exactly?
So, for instance, we have other ordinances outside. For instance,
Yes.
the ordinance that guides the membership of the design review board is not driven by the
Correct.
code.
Correct.
So that ordinance would be impacted throughout, because we're only looking at a handful tonight. Throughout the rest of the document, I'm wondering if there's a process where we look at the two, all of our ordinances and the code to see if there's anything else we have to adjust in there.
Mayor Knightsky, if I can, because I do work
course.
because I work with the municipal code, I've already been in contact with general code
Okay.
regarding this project. And in short order, we will be working with the consultants to make sure that our municipal code marries with this code and that the numbering is consistent and we don't end up with two separate codes.
Perfect. Thank you for
I think
that.
that's what you're asking.
Yeah, as well as any other impact, any other codes that are, any other ordinances that would be impacted.
There'll be a derivation table explaining the merger, like we did much when we did the previous code. But
Derivation table.
It's in.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's.
no, it's exciting, isn't it?
Hey, planning commission is the
This is what I do.
opportunity to expand your vocabulary.
The,
I was wondering
it's in
if,
the
I was
municipal
sitting here
code.
wondering if general code was a person or a company, so. Okay, any other wonderings on Article 3? Yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
just going to make a suggestion for the Historical Preservation Commission, maybe somebody from the Historical Society as well, since they have a lot of background on the history and buildings of Port Washington.
Yeah,
That's how it. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of, yeah, that's how it usually goes. Yes.
Okay.
Plus, they're a property owner, so wouldn't be a bad idea. All right, thank you, Mr. Harris.
All right, moving on to Article 4, just some small things as far as, as you know, we kind of do it for rezonings. We always do the mailings of property owners within 200 feet. Ask for, it just kind of lays out the process for that, really deliberate. And I think it asks for, it's kind of a should in there, so we can have an affidavit of mailing. So, if we get these cases where I didn't get this 200 notice, we kind of have an affidavit or some other record showing that. We kind of do that informally now. This kind of lays it out a little more specifically. And then I would also like to, for site visits for the Plan Commission, we haven't undertaken a lot of them, but they are permitted, and it lays out just kind of some rules for site visits. And we can include historic preservation and design review board in that, moving forward with this new code. The remaining chapters or the remaining articles are all pretty prescribed by state law. The shoreline wetland overlay districts, the shoreline overlay districts, and the performance standards. And the performance standards are just kind of not what you think they are. They're just kind of a baseline, and then we get into the more nuanced and more details of each individual zoning district. I didn't have anything to add to both the shoreline wetland overlay district, the shoreline overlay district. Again, these are pretty much all prescribed by state statutes. The only one with performance standards, I would just ask that it talks about the industrial noise standards. I would make sure that they match up with what we have currently. I guess this is our one touch point with the data center project. With the I-3 zoning is that we make sure that they align with the 70 decibels or lower. Other than that, this first wave of chapters was pretty, it was kind of a get our toe in the water a little bit and kind of ease us into it, and then you'll see a little more detailed material coming your way this winter. But that is it, and I really thank you for covering, starting to cover, what can be really dry material, but it's kind of needed. These things kind of last for a generation or so. And I already take this feedback you got, and I'll take that back to Grafe and move forward.
Bob, what's the timeline then for the remainder of the chapters and feedback periods?
So, you're gonna see these for the next 1, 2, 3, 4 Plan Commission meetings. But in the meantime, before I come to the Plan Commission meeting, I'll be doing, the outreach that I do, both website, setting up interviews, doing, reaching out to stakeholders, et cetera. So, they'll be coming in waves, I think. That's how it works. So there are about 4 or 5 chapters per meeting.
Okay, thank you. Questions, wonderings, direction for Mr. Harris? Mr. Ehrlich?
I would just like to comment, Bob, you're doing a really nice job. This is extremely thorough and really nice to see, and it's about time.
I've said this when I started making calls to my colleagues around the, southeast Wisconsin about the ones that have done this project. It's a lot. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so I knew what I was getting into, but once I was there, I'm a one-man show here, so have grace.
I noticed Mike didn't use adjective scintillating.
It's not scintillating.
No, 'cause I don't know that word.
It can be. I don't know. It can be. It's what I deal with every day. And so, but it'll be interesting once we get some really good guidelines, both for downtown and stuff that I've been asking for a while is just greater architectural standards too. That'll be, I think that'll be most welcome as you
Variances,
understand.
Everything else. Well, and for our guests who remain tonight, I just want to tell you that normally we would be sitting here talking about extending a driveway by 6 inches for a variance of code. So I appreciate your diligence and your tenacity to stick with us. So with that, if there are any other questions, I just have a couple of quick thank yous and then a question for Superintendent McMahon over there. First, I just want to thank the staff for doing their diligence tonight, preparing the documentation, going through everything, the months of work on the TID and the research with that. Thanking neighboring communities, the lessons learned to our south and other parts of the state of Wisconsin. Again, as we move forward with that agreement now on multiple steps for those of you watching, there are other opportunities to come and comment. Our next council meeting is next Tuesday at 6:30, and we will be hosting that where, Susan?
That council meeting next week will be held at Lepanto Banquet Center, which is in the Holiday Inn up on Seven Hills Road at the north end of the city. So the old conference area or ballroom area is also called a banquet center. So it's connected to the Holiday Inn. There's a lot of parking. There'll be a lot more space. And we're looking forward to being able to host everyone there.
And we were unable to move tonight's meeting or our JRB meeting there because of the way state statute operates with our postings and notices to the press and the public. So people were very graceful this evening and civil, which was highly appreciated, which leads me to my second thank you, which is to our law enforcement officers from the city of Port Washington who were with us tonight. I appreciate 2 things. One is your presence, but second, the sacrifice to be away from your families and coming in off shift to support and help us maintain order this evening. Your presence was greatly appreciated, as always, in our awesome police department in the city of Port Washington. As Chief Hingus will remind us, it's the best in the world. It is a community policing group, and we're proud of you. And then finally, for our friends here who are from out of town, Superintendent McMahon, what do we got going on this Friday? What are some of the things that we should be looking forward to in the city?
I was just going to say they have a busy night tomorrow night. We host homecoming, so the police department will assist with that. But they'll also close down the street tomorrow afternoon for our parade that will start at 4:15. So join us for our homecoming parade. Then we lead ourselves up to Pirate Way, where we have our athletic booster clubs put together a fun kickoff event. Our music department will be singing, choir, etc. So please join us for that event. And homecoming is always a fun event. We waited until the final game of the season to have homecoming. Kettle Moraine Lutheran will be joining us, and our Pirates will be taking them on at 7 o'clock.
So the Kettle Moraine Lutheran football team's gonna have a really bad weekend.
I think so.
Who did soccer play?
Soccer is playing tonight, and I couldn't tell you who they're playing tonight, but they're preparing for a hosted playoff game next week. So.
And volleyball?
And volleyball is also hosting. They have won their first conference title in school history as of
That's
last
it.
night.
Let's go Pirates.
Yes, first conference title for our volleyball team.
Yeah. And everybody's going to be coming home this weekend. So to my friends from the class of 1989, please make good choices and represent us well. With that, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or concerns on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion carries. Happy homecoming. Go Pirates. Good night, everybody.